is a company that bought 75% of ISAR in 2007. ISAR is a Chinese company, Chinese communication company, cell phone companies. Well, it was a very good deal. Here's Vodafone from Britain and ISAR from Hong Kong, China. Now, these companies made a deal. They came to India. India says, well, that's a capital gains. But they were not going to go after ISAR, which is the Chinese company, but they wanted Vodafone to pay $2.5 million. I mean, when is a buyer going to pay capital gains tax when he's just got the company in his hand?
But why are they not going after the Chinese company?
Because they're afraid. You know, this is not connected to the same story, but I did read in Bloomberg where the Singapore Prime Minister, who was there for 31 years, he believes that India is afraid of China. You know, China has put together a free trade deal, which India should snap, but India doesn't want to snap because they're afraid that Chinese cars will replace Maruti. And the Singaporean Prime Minister is saying that India is very afraid the Chinese, with their better goods and better quality, may take over India, and that can be worse. So they don't want to take the free trade deal. It's okay to have duties and cross-border restrictions and all of that. But coming back to this story, I want to tell you, the corruption, according to them, every MP, which is member of parliament election, they can only spend up to $50,000. Now, the entire country knows it takes more than $50,000. So where's the rest of the money coming from?
So the campaign money has got to be through corruption and illegal activities.
For instance, in Tamil Nadu, it's a state in the south, there the party promised that everyone who will vote for them will get a color television set. And so far, they have given away 15 million color television sets.
It's disgraceful.
Used to be that they'll say we'll reduce the price of grain or rice and other things. But now it is, we will give you the next election cycle that they are fighting. They're saying we will give every woman a food processor.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, come on. The only state that does not have a top-tier corruption is Gujarat.
What makes Gujarat so different?
Oh, Mr. Modi can make things happen. He's the chief minister. He actually brought in $450 billion in private investment. The rest of India's foreign direct investment declined by 31%, telling Indian government, look, if you stop the corruption, this is what you're going to see, which Gujarat is really showing it up. I mean, it's amazing. Mr. Modi, who was refused visa here in the United States and still hasn't been able to come, I really think that the State Department should relook at that and issue him a visa. He appears to be the only good guy up there.
I came across a great story in the New York Times about young American doctors going abroad to do work. They're working in places where there is a great need for healthcare workers, where illness and disease are major problems, and those countries don't have enough of their own healthcare workers to really deal with some of the problems. And there are more and more programs here in the United States facilitated by universities and also in programs in Canada that are sending these young healthcare workers and doctors abroad. For example, there are some politicians' children involved in these efforts. Vanessa Carey, who is a Harvard-trained doctor herself and daughter of Senator John Kerry, is advocating for a U.S. federal government program, kind of like the Peace Corps, but for doctors and nurses to work as trained healthcare workers in developing countries. Also, Barbara Bush, daughter of former President George W. Bush, co-founded a nonprofit organization called Global Health Corps, and they're sending graduates to 8 different countries, and mostly in Africa, and those people are doing year-long fellowships with other nonprofit organizations. So you have opportunities like this. There's even something called the Pediatric AIDS Corps, and I thought this was very interesting because, you know, in the United States, we've pretty much gotten rid of mother-to-child transmission of HIV. If a mother has HIV, it doesn't mean that she has to pass it down to her child. She can take meds, and her child could be HIV-free. Now, this is unfortunately not the case in many other parts of the world, and so the Pediatric AIDS Corps is really working hard to stop that mother-to-child transmission in other parts of the world, and doctors who work in that program can get as much as $40,000 a year of their educational debt paid. So that is a big incentive, right, for a young doctor who is service-oriented, who wants to do good, and can also get rid of some of the debt that they incur as a medical student, as a resident. It's expensive.
I used to hear about another NGO that was very popular back then called Doctors Without Borders. They went to Haiti and the other places, and I guess everybody together is trying to make sure that the world's health situation gets better.
Just to give you an idea how much this kind of effort has helped in the last few years, until 2005, not a single child with AIDS was on publicly financed antiretroviral therapy in Lesotho, which is a southern African country. So there you see that just as recently as 6 years ago, these children were not getting the treatment, they weren't getting the drugs that they needed, and now there's been a big change.
You also have to thank Melinda and Bill Gates because they brought in a lot of money in the healthcare arena for the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Moving on, folks, you understand that today pensions have become public enemy number one to cut everywhere. For instance, the city of Oakland, the pension fund is 70% unfunded. They just simply don't have any money.
Wow.
Because what they did is when they did not have the money, they could not give the employees a raise. So the union said, well, you don't have to give us a raise, just give us pension benefits. And it goes in the outer years, so you don't have to worry today. And hopefully the world is getting better. You know, you're going to have returns on your investments and the others.
That was wishful thinking, should we say?
Wishful thinking. So now the candidate running for the post of mayor, first thing they want to say is, we are going to cut off the pension. It is sad because some of the employees do contribute towards the pension. Some cities allow them, some cities don't allow them. But because it is pay as you go, you know, in other words, just like folks in Social Security, there's no fund. When you give money, it goes to general spending fund. And they hope and believe there are more people who are paying Social Security than the one who are receiving it. So whatever money you get, you just throw it every single year. There is no fund. There was no fund for these pensions either.
It wasn't protected in any way.
That's right.
Yeah.
In fact, it was actually brought on by the government. Back in the 60s and 70s, you know, companies used to do that. Hey, I don't have money. Okay, I'll give it to you in pension later on. What happened is one of the companies, Studebaker was the automobile company that went bankrupt. And everybody lost a pension. So the unions collectively went to the government and said,